Welcome back, lovely ladies. If you want to become the woman of your dreams, make sure to hit that subscribe button and like this video. And join our Patreon for even more exclusive content. Now, let's dive into today's story.
I grew up in a suburb that felt endlessly uniform. Quiet streets with identical manicured lawns and neighbors who exchanged polite hellos while rarely lingering for anything more. My family fit neatly into this setting, neither wealthy nor poor, neither rebellious nor especially adventurous. As a kid, I wasn't unhappy per se, but I always had the vague sense that something else existed out there, some bigger stage or more complex undertow in life that everyone around me was content to ignore. In high school, I was the sort of gangly, awkward boy who never quite got along with the standard cliques. Teachers generally praised my academic work, especially anything technological, but I had few real friends. When I finally made it to a big public university, it felt as if a door had cracked open. I met all sorts of people I could never have imagined back home, creative souls, confident leaders, and secret eccentrics who found subtle ways of expressing themselves. I found some acceptance in a small circle of programming enthusiasts and spent long hours in computer labs tinkering with code. Even with that, it wasn't that I thrived socially. Some leftover hesitance or self-consciousness kept me from stepping boldly into new spaces. But I began to see a more interesting world. After I graduated, I landed a straightforward job in IT at a large corporation outside of Sacramento. The position sounded good on paper, the salary was decent, the benefits fine, and the commute manageable. But almost immediately, it felt repetitive. My day-to-day life revolved around urging managers to update their laptops and coaxing them through the intricacies of basic computer security. There was nothing thrilling about it. I was making money, yes, but I felt adrift, if not outright bored, and on most days I wondered whether I had chosen the right path. At home, however, my evenings and weekends took on a life of their own. Ever since college, I'd been fascinated by electronics and engineering, especially how they might be applied to items not commonly thought of as requiring high-tech modifications. I started with small contraptions that had automated opening or locking mechanisms. Just for fun, I told myself. I liked tinkering in my garage with metal parts, tiny motors, and specialized fasteners. Late at night, I'd research ways to fine-tune these devices, all connected to simple apps I learned to develop on my phone. Little by little, this tinkering led me to create prototypes of wearable gadgets that could lock or unlock in response to timers or remote commands, as well as a few contraptions that applied gentle mechanical pressure or impact. Though the details felt a bit personal, friends would have raised eyebrows had they known exactly what I was building. I found the process endlessly fascinating. How to balance safety and security, how to ensure it worked reliably and still delivered the sense of adventure I wanted. It became a puzzle that expanded with every new idea. I was aware there were certain obvious risks to these designs. If a locking mechanism jammed when no one else was around, that could be disastrous. Eventually, I built emergency release solutions, safe words or override codes that would only function if the user's phone was nearby and powered, with the app running in the background. Even then, I worried about maintaining the right mixture of reliability and that intangible thrill factor. Part of the excitement was the sense of being constrained by technology. Yet, ironically, I still needed fail-safes. Those small creations took up more and more of my free time. My garage was a mess of half-finished designs, old cords, small power tools, and half-empty boxes of parts. With my first successful prototypes, I began fine-tuning them further, building variations, collecting better metals, and sourcing small-scale custom modifications from machinists. Soon, I had multiple versions lying around. Out of curiosity, I decided to post a listing or two on Etsy under a vague description that framed them as lockable accessories with timed release. I half expected no one to buy them. Instead, they sold faster than I could have imagined. Etsy customers left enthusiastic messages, many asking for new features or custom requests. Surprised and intrigued, I started devoting more time to this side project. I redesigned the app that accompanied these items, making it more polished, adding stealth modes, and strengthening the encryption. Though it was awkward to explain, I listed them as smart home locks or versatile personal gadgets, careful never to attract the wrong kind of scrutiny. I had to put in serious thought about user safety. If someone were to lock themselves in a contraption without a plan, I didn't want to read about tragic incidents later. My biggest steps were building out a tiny server setup to handle encrypted communications between the phone app and the devices themselves. Over time, I added another layer of cloud-based monitoring. The idea was that if a connected fitness device, like a smartwatch, detected something unusual, like dangerously elevated heart rate or immobility for too long, it could trigger a remote release or even call for help. That meant more peace of mind for me and my buyers. As my devices gained traction, I considered adding a subscription option. I knew from the feedback that people liked the idea of giving control to a partner or even surrendering themselves to a system that decided how long they remained locked. So I added a function that let a user assign temporary control of the gadget to someone else or to the server's own random timer functionality. It was a hit. My user base wasn't huge, but it was dedicated and grew steadily. The subscription money trickled in month after month, enough that I started thinking seriously about what else I could do. Meanwhile, my actual day job was beginning to suffer. I'd stay up until 3 a.m. refining a new gadget, then arrive late to work and be halfway asleep at my desk. At some point, I realized I was making more income from the gadgets and the subscription service combined than from my salary. Rather than wait for trouble at my corporate job, I decided to hand in my resignation. Although it was scary to let go of the conventional stability, I had at least half a year's worth of savings, plus a strong gut feeling that my side business was only starting to flourish. In the months that followed, my gamble paid off. Freed from a traditional work schedule, I spent my mornings going for runs or doing light workouts, then tackled orders and customer support in the afternoons. I began outsourcing some of the manufacturing to trusted suppliers. I would design the custom parts, send them the specs, and have them produce short runs. When the monthly fee from the subscription app reached a certain point, I was able to renegotiate better arrangements with those suppliers. My profit margins grew. All this time, I'd been living in a small ranch house near Sacramento, chosen only for its convenient commute. Its highlight for me was the spacious garage that doubled as my workshop. The rest of the place felt drab. Now that I no longer had an office job to tie me to the area, I wanted a change. Many of my new clients and potential installations were in the Bay Area, which often meant long drives. After a few months of searching, I found a modest 2-bedroom house in San Jose that had 2 big selling points: a decent-sized garage for my workshop and a basement I could renovate for extra projects. The price was high, but not unmanageable. Once I closed on the house, I spent a couple of months working with contractors on the renovations. The ground floor was modernized into an open layout, perfect for a single occupant who liked to flit between different tasks. The basement, though, was where I poured my creative energy. I had workers install thick insulation, special drainage, and higher-grade wiring. Then I personally tackled the finishing touches: a sturdy, electronically controlled door, and an interior that was easy to hose down if needed. The space was my ultimate test environment for the wearable locking devices I sold. If it worked there, Under the strictest conditions, I was confident customers could use the devices at home safely. Living alone for the first time without the constraints of a corporate schedule also freed me to indulge my interest in wearing women's clothing. This began as a sort of private amusement in college, but now it became part of my routine. Each morning I'd slip into leggings and a loose tank top or a cropped t-shirt when I worked around the house. I let my hair grow out well past my ears and eventually to my shoulders. Initially, I kept it tied back in a ponytail if I ran errands. But as I became more comfortable, I learned to curl it, giving myself a short, soft wave that framed my face. Evening experiments with makeup tutorials became regular occurrences. Although I couldn't fully pass as a woman, I enjoyed glancing in the mirror and catching that faintly feminine silhouette. It sparked a unique sort of thrill. On one ordinary afternoon, I received an unusual email from a man in San Francisco. He asked if I would be willing to do a custom installation of some of my locking gadgets at his home, and if so, how much I would charge. I had never offered a service like that, so I quoted a very high price, assuming it would scare him off. To my surprise, he accepted it without argument, even wiring me a partial retainer immediately. 2 weeks later, I drove north with my van full of parts and tools. I arrived at an older, meticulously kept 3-bedroom house in a picturesque neighborhood. The homeowner, along with his partner, greeted me politely. They led me to a spare room they referred to as their play area. They had some existing equipment, discreet but obviously meant for escapades of the adventurous sort, and they wanted me to integrate my locking gadgets into the frames and attachments. My presence there felt surreal, but they were kind, professional, and appreciative. It all went without a hitch. I assumed it would be an isolated odd job, but soon afterward, a handful of clients reached out, mostly from the Bay Area, asking for similar work. About once a month, sometimes more, I drove to a variety of residences to set up new gadgets or refine existing ones. These were not always large-scale or elaborate. Sometimes they just wanted an advanced locking mechanism on a bedroom chest or a special device that restricted movement in specific ways. Each time, I made sure everything was safe, well-tested, and integrated seamlessly with the subscription features they requested. One client might want to operate the locks themselves via the app. Another wanted to let a partner or friend manage the lock times remotely. Each scenario made me realize I was offering a specialty service that filled a curious niche. As these jobs piled up, I started to see that living in San Jose had been a good move. Yes, housing costs were steep, but the proximity to clients and new connections proved valuable. I often teased the idea of whether I should be marketing the service more openly, but I worried it might attract the wrong kind of attention. For now, I felt comfortable operating mostly through referrals and quiet word of mouth. Meanwhile, the basement in my new home served as the perfect laboratory. I had a dedicated testing rig, part metal framework, part simple cot, and some overhead rails for hoisting or securing a device in place. The electronically controlled door could seal me inside if I wanted to see how something functioned over a certain number of hours. The overhead lighting was bright enough for my cameras to film, so I could watch the footage later to assess my gear. By day, I kept to my programming and manufacturing schedule. By night, I might slip into the basement to test a new version of a wrist cuff that locked according to a random timer, or a belt that applied slight pressure at intervals. Occasionally, I ended up sleeping in those constraints on the basement's cot, only to be released in the morning when the timer's code was met. It was an odd routine, but it allowed me to refine the product's reliability and see firsthand what potential hazards existed. My own cross-dressing habits fit easily into this solitary existence. I wore leggings and a snug t-shirt during the day. When testing gear at night, I might swap them for a soft satin robe or a form-hugging leotard. More than once, I tried carefully applying eyeliner, blush, and lip color before descending into the basement, just so I could watch the test footage later and see an androgynous figure navigating these devices. Sometimes I felt a flood of excitement. Other times, I ended a test feeling silly or self-conscious. Still, with no one around to judge, I enjoyed the freedom. One day, I received a job request from a woman in my broader neighborhood. She introduced herself politely, explaining she'd heard about my custom device installations from a friend. She asked for something simple, a freestanding metal rig that could secure a person's arms or legs for a short period while staying safe and comfortable. She wanted me to integrate it with my typical smartphone controls so she could operate it hands-free. I gave her a quote, and she readily agreed. When I arrived, she turned out to be in her early 30s, with bright auburn hair, an easy smile, and a sharp sense of humor. As I installed the rig in a spare room, we chatted lightly about technology, local restaurants, and my design process. Once I was nearly done, I went to her living room to check something on my phone that would finalize the app's setup. But when I came back to the spare room, I froze. She had strapped herself into the device, entirely unclothed, waiting with an amused look on her face. "Everything working fine?" she teased, arching a brow. I swallowed hard. "Looks like it," I managed. "Care to make sure it's doing what it's supposed to?" she asked, voice smooth. For a moment, I had no idea how to respond. I'd never encountered a scenario quite this direct. Much as I might have found her attractive, I also felt a jolt of panic. I was wearing my usual underlayers that day, which in my case were distinctly feminine. If she saw them, she might have questions. Besides, part of me wasn't sure it was wise to get involved with a client like that. I stammered something about how I was on a tight schedule and needed to be at another job, quickly tapped the final configurations on my phone, and excused myself, ignoring her half-smile as she realized I was flustered. By the time I made it to my van, my heart was thumping, and I had to sit for a moment to collect myself. That evening, she sent me an email, including a picture of her still in the device, though tastefully framed, and a short message about how maybe next time the roles should be reversed. Her message ended with a cheeky XOXO and her name, Nicole. Though some installations tested my composure, I generally loved the freedom of my new life. My finances were solid, I had time to devote to personal pursuits, and I learned new things with each custom job. My workouts became more targeted, focusing on building a toned, limber body. I kept a disciplined schedule, balancing design, customer communication, and the occasional long run. I found a certain sense of calm in all of this. Months passed. One morning, I woke up to find a text from a person calling herself Ms. Alex, representing a professional establishment in Oakland. She said she ran a private venue that provided immersive experiences for clientele, and had heard about my custom installations. She requested a meeting to see if we could collaborate. Intrigued, I drove to the address at the appointed time, located in an industrial section of Oakland that looked fairly nondescript from the outside. When I rang the bell at a side door, a tall, striking woman greeted me. She wore a crisp white blouse, a narrow black pencil skirt, and heeled boots, giving her a polished yet commanding aura. Her hair was bleached blonde, but with subtle, artful highlights. "You must be Jeremy," she said. "I'm Ms. Alex. Thank you for coming." Her voice held the cool confidence of someone used to giving orders. She invited me inside, through a minimalist hallway that resembled a modern design firm's office. She led me to a spacious room which was outfitted with a number of metal structures and attachments on the walls. Some looked like standard workout or therapeutic rigs, though I suspected they served a more adventurous purpose here. "I'd like you to integrate some of your creations," Ms. Alex said in a matter-of-fact tone. Our clients often want more advanced personal routines, sometimes remotely supervised. I've heard your products can be remotely controlled with robust safety features. Is that correct? I nodded, feeling mildly intimidated. They can be connected via an app, yes, and we have cloud monitoring as an option. Timers, remote control, that sort of thing. Good, she replied. I'd like to start with some basics. We'll see if it suits our needs. Follow me. She led me to a smaller side room, more private, where I spent the better part of 3 hours installing a few of my simpler locking devices. I kept the conversation professional, answering her questions about safety, battery life, and customization. Occasionally, I'd notice her studying me carefully, as though deciding whether I was trustworthy or just a curious oddball. I suspected she was used to dealing with a broad range of personalities. I finished attaching a device to a sturdy metal framework in the corner, then tidied up my tools. Ms. Alex walked in silently, her heels tapping on the floor. I was about to stand and mention I was ready to finalize the app test, but she said, "If you're finished here, please follow me to my office. I'll settle your invoice." I followed, stepping into a spacious, glass-walled office that showcased the city skyline. She gestured for me to stand by the desk. As I turned to face the window, I was suddenly aware of her right behind me. With surprising swiftness, she grasped the waistband of my trousers and tugged them downward. My heart pounded as my pants slid to my knees, revealing a pair of lace-accented undergarments I'd worn that day, along with a small, lockable band around my waist that I used for personal testing. "I suspected as much," Ms. Alex said calmly, releasing the waistband. "You have an interest in what you build, don't you?" I felt a flush creep over my cheeks. I do test my products on myself," I stammered. "Of course," she said, walking to the other side of her desk. "I have no issue with that. On the contrary, it tells me that you're thorough. However, I would prefer if you wore something more appropriate when conducting business at my venue." She tapped a button on the desk phone. A voice answered and Ms. Alex said, "Send in the uniform, please." Moments later, a staff member entered, carrying a small pile of neatly folded black and white fabric, along with a pair of black pumps. Then the staff member left without comment. Ms. Alex set the items on the edge of the desk. "Kindly remove your shoes and step out of those pants. Try this on." She walked out, shutting the door behind her. My mind spun with conflicting thoughts. Part of me wanted to run out of the building. Part of me couldn't deny a strange thrill. In a moment of awkward compliance, I slipped off my shoes, extricated myself from my pants around my ankles, and examined the uniform. It was a Maid-style dress, short in length, with a small white apron and frilly ruffles. I could already tell it would barely reach the middle of my thighs. The black pumps had a modest 3-inch heel. My own reflection stared at me from the tinted glass, a mixture of panic and curiosity. Once dressed, I tried to steel my nerves. The short skirt left little to the imagination, especially with my personal undergarments. My waistlock was still visible as a faint outline if someone looked closely, and I worried that Ms. Alex's staff might gossip. But there I was, in a stylized uniform, the final flourish being a small lace headband. Feeling my face burn, I opened the office door. Miss Alex was outside, checking something on a tablet. She looked up, then slowly circled me, taking in how the outfit fit. "Yes, that will do nicely," she said. "That is what I want you to wear on future visits, so my employees and clients understand precisely who you are. Think of it as branding." I must have looked bewildered, because she offered me a half smile. "Follow me. We'll discuss the partnership in detail." She led me down a short corridor to another office, which was smaller and lined with file cabinets. Behind the desk sat none other than Nicole, the woman from my earlier installation job, who had once teased me by strapping herself into a device. She wore an elegant navy blue dress and looked every bit the professional. Her eyes sparkled mischievously when she spotted me in the maid's uniform. "Hello, Jeremy," Nicole said, barely hiding a grin. "I see you found a new sense of style." Ms. Alex spoke briskly. "Nicole, please record Jeremy's contact details in our system and prepare a standard partnership proposal for him. We'll trial our service with client number 6. That client has been pushing for more at-home accountability. Let's see how well Jeremy's devices integrate with our supervision systems." Nicole's lips curved in a playful smile as she made a note. Ms. Alex looked back at me, her chin tilted at a confident angle. "You'll be compensated fairly. 50-50 split on subscription fees generated by these specialized installations. If it's profitable, we'll expand. Is that acceptable?" I swallowed and gave a slight nod. "Yes, I'd like to see the agreement in writing, but it sounds workable." "Good." Miss Alex turned on her heel and left the room. The moment she was gone, Nicole's gaze flicked down, taking in the uniform. "Well, well," she teased quietly. "Had I known this was your style, I wouldn't have let you slip away that day." I cleared my throat, cheeks burning. She instructed me to come around the desk so she could confirm my phone number, email address, and other details in the system. As I complied, she playfully lifted the hem of my short skirt with a finger, giggling at my obvious embarrassment. "I suppose that day you didn't want to reveal your underthings," she murmured. "I get it now. How interesting." I managed an awkward shrug, scribbling my signature on a piece of paper. When I was done, I realized my own clothes, my pants, socks, and shoes, were nowhere in sight. I looked around, then at Nicole. "Am I supposed to go home in this?" I asked, incredulous. "I think that was Ms. Alex's intention," she said, biting her lip to hide a smile. Then she disappeared into a storage room and returned with a sparkly pink handbag. "Your wallet and keys are in here, along with your phone. Also," she added with an exaggerated flourish, "a pair of flat sandals. We wouldn't want you driving in those heels, would we?" She handed me the sandals, which had bright pink rhinestones on the straps. At least they were somewhat easier to walk in. When I finally gathered the nerve to leave, I strutted out to my van, holding the back of the miniskirt down with one hand, the rhinestone-studded sandals click-clacking on the pavement. The cool air on my thighs made me hyper-aware of my outfit. By some miracle, no one was around to see me, and I drove home with both nerves and a strange buzz of exhilaration fluttering inside me. That evening, as I was still replaying the day's events in my head, a package arrived at my doorstep. It was from Ms. Alex, with a note taped to the outside. "I think a uniform for your visits is in order. Best regards, Ms. Alex." Inside the box was a brand new version of the black maid's dress I'd worn earlier, along with the apron, lace headpiece, stockings, and those same modest heels in my exact size. I sat on my couch, the outfit laid out in front of me, and tried to breathe normally. My business arrangement with Ms. Alex was about to become very real, and I wasn't entirely sure how I felt about it. Still, curiosity gnawed at me. She'd offered an arrangement that promised lucrative returns. The people who frequented her establishment apparently wanted at-home accountability and remote supervision, and I had the technology to make that happen. This was bigger than random Etsy customers or occasional suburban installations. It might require frequent visits, more sophisticated customizations, and ongoing oversight. And of course, Ms. Alex demanded a particular kind of presentation whenever I appeared at her venue. Perhaps that was part of the brand she cultivated, her employees or associates standing out in outfits that indicated their roles. I told myself that if it ever felt truly exploitative, I could break off the deal. But the memory of Ms. Alex's unwavering confidence and Nicole's playful smirk stayed with me. Something about the entire scenario, though nerve-wracking, also brought an odd sense of excitement. The next week, I completed a handful of smaller orders, updated the firmware on my older gadgets, and tried to keep things normal. Then the time came to meet client number 6, as Miss Alex had called them. Nicole texted me an address in a well-off neighborhood near downtown. The instructions were vague. Bring a standard set of my wearable gadgets, plus anything else I might need to integrate them for remote supervision. Additionally, Ms. Alex made it clear I was to arrive in the assigned uniform. That alone put a knot in my stomach. On the appointed day, I showered in the morning, carefully dried my shoulder-length hair, and applied just a touch of light makeup, enough to smooth my complexion and give my eyes a faint highlight. My reflection stared back at me in the mirror. A slender figure, not quite feminine, but no longer strictly masculine either. I pulled on the black dress, adjusting the white apron over the front, then carefully secured the lace headband over my hair. The dress left my legs mostly exposed, so I rolled on the sheer stockings that had come in the package, slipping my feet into the black pumps. I felt self-conscious just standing alone in my bedroom like that, but a small adrenaline rush coursed through me. Before leaving, I gathered my standard toolkit, devices, and a tablet into a large rolling case. The drive over felt like the longest 15 minutes of my life, worrying that I'd have to stop for gas or face some emergency while dressed in an unmistakably frilly outfit. Luckily, traffic was light, and I arrived at a tidy house with trimmed hedges and a tall wooden fence around the yard. As I approached the door, I made an effort not to waver on the heels. A slender man in his early 40s answered the door. He wore casual slacks and a button-down shirt. He blinked at my outfit for a moment, then said in a polite tone, "You must be the specialist Ms. Alex sent. Come in." Inside, he introduced himself as Martin. The interior of the house was elegantly furnished, and he led me to a side room where he'd cleared a space. "I assume you'll install the main hub here," he said. "Ms. Alex said I should be prepared for a few different items?" I nodded. "Yes, we have a kit of standard wearables and a monitoring hub that links everything to the central server." For the next few hours, we set up each piece. He wanted a routine that triggered mild constraints whenever Ms. Alex or one of her team members activated it from their side. That meant installing an app on Martin's phone, syncing it to the devices, and running safety checks. The entire time he seemed slightly on edge, as if he wasn't entirely comfortable having me see his personal preferences, but he was polite. I was likewise self-conscious about my outfit, yet I focused on the technical work. At one point, Martin stepped out to take a call, and I heard the doorbell ring again. Soon Nicole walked in, wearing a stylish jacket over a pencil skirt. She cast her gaze over me, from the black heels to the frilly apron. She gave a lopsided smile. "Looking good, Jeremy. Ms. Alex just wanted me to see how things are going. We're planning to expand these at-home setups for other clients soon, so we want everything perfect." I swallowed. "It's going smoothly," I said. "Martin just wanted to confirm certain scheduling options. We set up the device so Ms. Alex's system can access it from any location." She nodded. "Great. Ms. Alex will be pleased." I carried on with the installation, demonstrating features to Martin. By the end of it, he was satisfied, if a bit flustered by how thoroughly the technology could oversee him. Nicole left with a small wave, and I finished by testing the locks and remote triggers. After Martin signed a receipt confirming the successful installation, I packed my tools. I walked back to my van, feeling that same swirl of nerves and excitement. Over the ensuing weeks, Ms. Alex's partnership blossomed. She referred multiple clients, and each had distinct requests. Some only wanted the remote triggers, others wanted structural frameworks. A few required advanced sensors to detect if they tried to remove the wearable gear prematurely. With each job, Ms. Alex insisted I arrive in that same black uniform, which never stopped feeling surreal. Nonetheless, the compensation was excellent, and my subscription revenue was rising steadily. Clients paid a premium for Ms. Alex's brand of supervision integrated with my technology, and the share I took home was more than I had ever earned at my old IT job. I tried to maintain some normalcy. Outside of these specialized visits, I still sold gadgets on my website and supported older customers. The basement in my house remained my personal workshop and testing zone, though I found I spent less time locked in there overnight as business demanded my attention. Yet I couldn't resist the occasional session of testing a newly refined wearable by letting it run its timed constraints on me. Standing in my basement, wearing a sleek top and skirt, I'd watch the door's electronic lock hum shut and wait for the mild pulses or signals that indicated everything was running. That old sense of adrenaline never left. One day, I was about to head out for another Ms. Alex referral when I heard a knock at my front door. I opened it to find Nicole on my porch, a large cardboard box in her arms. She had a breezy grin. "Got a delivery for you," she announced, stepping inside. I recognized Ms. Alex's business label on the box. "Another uniform, maybe?" I joked, half laughing. Nicole smiled. "Could be. She wants to ensure you have multiple sets, so you never show up in anything less than pristine condition." She set it on my kitchen counter. As I rummaged for a box cutter, Nicole gestured to the living room. "Mind if I sit?" "Not at all," I said, slicing the tape. Inside the box, as expected, were 3 more identical black Maid dresses with white aprons, plus extra accessories like white lace gloves, more stockings, and neatly packaged black pumps in different heights. I let out a slow breath and closed the box. The uniform Ms. Alex had insisted on was starting to look less like a playful quirk and more like a strict requirement. Nicole watched my expression. "You look worried." "I'm still adjusting," I admitted. "All this is new to me, but it's been profitable." Nicole nodded, crossing one leg over the other. She looked comfortable. "I get it. I know it feels strange, but Ms. Alex invests in people who deliver results. So far, you've done an excellent job. She just likes to keep a certain structure. She's detail-oriented, I guess." I suspected detail-oriented was an understatement. Ms. Alex seemed to revel in orchestrating every aspect of her business. Still, I was in no position to complain, not when my bottom line was better than ever. After chatting with Nicole for a few minutes, I walked her to the door. She paused there, turning back. "By the way," she said lightly, "you never replied to that email I sent months ago, the one with a picture of me trying out your device?" I blushed. "I guess I was unsure how to respond," I said quietly. Her eyes sparkled with mischief. "Well, if you ever want a more personal demonstration, just let me know." She winked and left, shutting the door behind her. I stood there, pulse racing, the box of uniforms still on my counter. A part of me was tempted by her offer. Another part was cautious. Mixing personal entanglements with business ties to Ms. Alex could be risky. Yet I couldn't deny that my life had taken a sharp turn from the days of quietly persuading managers to update laptop software. Several days later, Ms. Alex summoned me to her main building in Oakland for a progress meeting. I arrived in my uniform, stockings, pumps, the short black dress, and a crisp white apron. I carried my usual rolling case, prepared to do some maintenance or demonstration if asked. At the front desk, the receptionist led me to Ms. Alex's office, but along the way I noticed more staff members glancing in my direction. Some smirked, some gave small nods, and some looked me up and down, sizing me up. Word must have spread that I was Ms. Alex's new technician, complete with a distinctive outfit. Inside her office, Ms. Alex stood behind a sleek glass desk, wearing an impeccably tailored navy suit jacket and skirt. She gestured for me to sit in a clear acrylic chair. My short skirt rose precariously as I sat. "Jeremy," she began, scanning a tablet. The new installations are running smoothly, and client satisfaction is high. Our subscription interface has integrated seamlessly with your devices. There's a surge of interest from additional clients, so I'd like to scale up. Can you handle higher volumes? I cleared my throat, keeping my knees together. Yes, I believe so. My manufacturing partners can produce more units. I just need to ensure the servers can handle additional data. I'll likely need to expand my cloud capacity. She nodded briskly. We'll revise your contract to reflect the higher volumes. Of course, the uniform requirement remains. You're a recognizable face of the brand now, especially for our exclusive clients. I nodded, though my stomach fluttered at the thought of meeting even more people while dressed like this. Then Miss Alex's voice softened fractionally. I trust it isn't too much for you wearing that. If you're having second thoughts, now is the time to speak. I took a breath, remembering how I'd gone from quietly building prototypes in a small garage to wearing lace and stockings in a swanky office. But I also remembered how bored and restless I'd felt in my old corporate job. Strange as this was, it gave me a jolt of energy, a sense of carving out my own path, albeit in an unconventional way. So I forced a slight smile. It's fine, I answered. I'll adapt. She nodded, satisfied. Excellent. Then I'll expect you back next week for a demonstration to a select group of potential patrons. Wear the new uniform set. Nicole will brief you on the details. That's all. I stood to leave, collecting my rolling case. Ms. Alex's voice stopped me just as I reached the door. Jeremy, keep up the good work, she said in a measured tone. People are noticing. I left her office feeling both anxious and oddly proud. True, I was parading around in a maid's dress, but I also felt more appreciated than I'd ever been at a regular job. My phone buzzed as I stepped outside. A message from Nicole. Drink tonight? Let's talk about that group demonstration. I replied, sure, setting a time and place. Later that evening, I met Nicole at a quiet bar with warm lighting and plush booths. I wore my regular casual clothes, a pair of dark jeans and a well-fitted sweater, though I kept my hair styled in gentle waves. Nicole, in a slim sheath dress, looked poised and self-assured. She signaled the bartender for 2 cocktails, and we settled into a booth near the back. For a while, we kept the conversation safe, discussing local restaurants, her background in event coordination, and some funny anecdotes about her first experiences with Ms. Alex's business. Then Nicole leaned in, swirling her drink with its tiny straw. So, about next week's demonstration, she said. Ms. Alex is inviting a handful of prospective clients. They want an in-depth look at how your devices function, especially the remote features. You'll showcase how all the safety measures work. It's partly a marketing pitch, partly a trust-building exercise. I nodded. Makes sense. They probably want to see if it's discreet and stable enough for them. Exactly. Ms. Alex wants you to model it personally, Nicole said with a little quirk of her lips. In the uniform, of course. I managed a small grin. Of course. Nicole leaned back in her seat, taking in my expression. She might ask me to assist in the demonstration, she said casually, which might mean I'll be the one controlling the test from the central console, while you, well, demonstrate the wearable device's capabilities. My cheeks warmed, but I took a sip of my cocktail. As long as I know the demonstration is safe, I'm okay with it. Nicole's eyes flicked over me, assessing. No second thoughts? I remember how flustered you were that first day in my house. I laughed softly. I was caught off guard. Now I'm a bit more prepared. She smiled. We'll see about that. I'm sure Miss Alex has a few surprises in mind. We spent the rest of the evening chatting. At some point, the conversation shifted to personal topics. Nicole admitted she found the combination of technology and creative style fascinating. I confided that I'd always felt stifled in normal settings, But this line of work, for all its eccentricities, let me push boundaries. She teased me a little about the Maid dress, saying I had nice legs for it, which made me blush. By the time we parted ways, I felt a renewed sense of curiosity about what the future held. The following days were a whirlwind of finalizing my new high-volume manufacturing contracts, updating the subscription app, and preparing a thoroughly polished demonstration script. I tested each device meticulously, ensuring there wouldn't be any embarrassing technical hiccups in front of Ms. Alex's potential VIP clients. The night before the demonstration, I laid out the brand new uniform Ms. Alex had sent, pressed and pristine, and tried not to dwell on stage fright. Finally, the day arrived. I dressed carefully, taking extra time with makeup, foundation to even out my skin, subtle eyeshadow to highlight my eyes, plus a muted lipstick that gave my lips some color without being gaudy. The black maid's dress was crisp, the white apron starched, and the matching pumps polished. The lacy headband perched atop my styled hair, which I had pinned back so it wouldn't obscure my face. I took a deep breath and loaded up my rolling case with all the demonstration gear. At Ms. Alex's venue, a staff member led me to a polished presentation room. A semicircle of chairs faced a raised platform. Off to one side stood a small table loaded with refreshments. Ms. Alex greeted me with a quick smile, directing me to set up on the platform. Several potential clients were already mingling near the back, talking quietly. Nicole stood at a console, testing the remote signals and glancing at me every so often. Once the demonstration began, Ms. Alex welcomed everyone and introduced me as her lead developer of immersive personal technology. I tried to speak calmly, explaining how the devices locked, how the random timer features worked, and how remote monitoring could be done discreetly. Then I placed one of the wearable items around my midsection and another around my wrists, demonstrating how Ms. Alex or Nicole could activate or release them from the console. Nicole tapped the controls and the devices obeyed, locking or unlocking on command. A few times, Ms. Alex invited the guests to come forward and try the phone app on a training setting so they could see how easy it was to schedule times or set up certain mild signals. This was all done quite formally, with minimal references to anything overtly personal. The entire focus was on safety, reliability, and the novelty of technology-based oversight. I still felt conspicuous in my outfit, but I managed to keep my posture and tone professional. When the demonstration ended, applause broke out. Ms. Alex nodded approvingly. Clients approached to shake my hand or ask more detailed questions. Then the group dispersed to discuss financial matters. As I gathered my gear, Ms. Alex stepped over, a glint of satisfaction in her eyes. "Well done," she said softly. "You were poised, clear, and gave them just enough of a taste to intrigue them." I felt an odd wave of relief and excitement. "Thank you," I said. "I hope it generates more business." She smiled thinly. "Oh, I'm sure it will." That evening, I could barely contain my mix of adrenaline and exhaustion. I realized that my life had settled into a rhythm I never could have predicted back in my suburban upbringing. By day, I was a mild-mannered entrepreneur, shipping out orders and troubleshooting app issues. By certain afternoons, I donned the short black dress, stockings, and heels, stepping into Ms. Alex's domain, where I seamlessly installed high-tech gear in the homes of her private clients. Meanwhile, my cross-dressing no longer felt like a passing hobby. It was part of me, part of my everyday reality. Not everyone from my old life would understand. In fact, I wondered if some would be horrified. But I had found a niche where I could fuse my technological interests and a flair for the unusual. With Ms. Alex, Nicole, and the growing circle of clients who recognized my expertise, I felt valued. I hesitated to label it with any grand term. Nonetheless, I recognized that I was forging my own strange path, and the success was impossible to deny. Late that night, as I curled up on my couch, still wearing the uniform after returning from the demonstration, I found a new email from Ms. Alex. The subject line read, "Exciting developments." She wrote a short paragraph about positive responses from prospective clients, praising my presentation. Then she mentioned possible expansions, larger facilities, more advanced sensors, expanded subscription tiers. At the bottom, she added, "I trust you'll be prepared for bigger challenges. Keep refining your craft. This is only the beginning." I read the email twice before setting my phone aside. My eyes roamed to the box on my kitchen counter, still half filled with the new uniform sets. A small laugh escaped me as I thought about the bizarre twists my life had taken. And yet, I couldn't help but smile. A bigger stage awaited, whether I felt ready or not. The next morning, I indulged in a long shower and allowed myself to try a new makeup style, a slightly bolder eyeshadow, and a lighter lip gloss. Examining myself in the mirror, I marveled at how my reflection seemed to exist in a space between typical boundaries. And it didn't bother me in the slightest. I felt comfortable in my own skin, and though I never would have expected to become a specialized consultant for Ms. Alex's venue, wearing a frilly uniform as part of the job, I also realized that it made sense in a twisting, strange way. In the coming weeks, Ms. Alex's clients lined up for installations. Some, like Martin, were discreet about the service. Others invited me in with curiosity, wanting to see if I'd show up in the same getup they'd heard about. One day, a flamboyant older man insisted on snapping a photo with me, proclaiming I was the cutest tech professional he'd ever seen. I blushed and forced a polite smile. Meanwhile, Nicole and I maintained a steady flirtation, though it never quite moved beyond playful banter and the occasional brazen text messages. She seemed content to keep our dynamic at that level, at least for now. The basement in my home evolved as well. I replaced some older devices with refined prototypes, improved the lighting, and even installed a small set of mirrors so I could observe myself more clearly during tests. Occasionally, I'd commit to an overnight session locked away, partly to verify the reliability of the app's random timings and partly to revel in the unusual tranquility it offered. Emerging in the morning, stiff and tired, I'd shake my head at how different my life had become since my days of standard 9-to-5 boredom. Over time, the partnership with Ms. Alex became an undeniable cornerstone of my business. We hammered out the final contract language, ensuring I retained ownership of my designs, but granted her venue exclusive marketing rights for certain specialized versions. The monthly income soared. My user base outside her network still existed, but Ms. Alex's set of well-heeled, adventurous clients drove much of my revenue. I hired a virtual assistant and a part-time coder to help with the subscription app's expansion, leaving me free to focus on big-picture product development and the occasional personal modeling of new prototypes. One early evening, I was reading through feedback forms from the Oakland venue's clients, success stories of people who found these devices helpful or intriguing, when the doorbell rang. Peering through the window, I saw a delivery person dropping off yet another box with Ms. Alex's distinctive label. I carried it inside, heart skipping a beat, half expecting more frilly attire. Inside, however, I found a brand new variation of the uniform in deep red with black lace accents, plus a note. A limited edition for special events. Wear it with pride, Ms. Alex. I laughed out loud, setting the card on my kitchen table. So it was official. I was the uniformed technician for Ms. Alex's domain, someone who balanced a laptop in one hand and wore a short, lacy outfit that left me both exposed and oddly fulfilled. I realized that my life now occupied a realm far from the unremarkable suburb of my childhood, and I wasn't sure I would ever want to go back. Exhausted from the day, I allowed myself a moment of reflection, thinking back on every step that led here. Those lonely high school days, the humdrum corporate job, the tinkering in my garage, the leap of faith to start my own business, and all the unusual encounters with clients. And now, the short skirt, the glinting black pumps, the expansions on the horizon, all of it was my new reality. After a while, I carefully folded the note from Ms. Alex and placed the red uniform in my closet beside the others. With a faint smile, I closed the closet door. Life felt unpredictable, but I had found a niche that let me thrive in ways I never would have anticipated. The next steps were uncharted, but my phone was buzzing with fresh inquiries and more installations, and Ms. Alex's unstoppable confidence in me only seemed to grow. Whatever came next, I'd be stepping onto that path, most likely in a pair of heels.
Did you like the story? Hit that like button and tell me what you thought in the comments. Do you want to hear more stories? Subscribe and hit the bell. For exclusive content and early access, check out our Patreon. You can find the link in the description, or you can watch any of the videos shown on my right. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.